Okay. I guess I'm doing this the hard way. Hello, Ebanscapers. This is Mel. Welcome back to my channel. You are at the Eben Space. Don't forget to like and subscribe, of course. That seems reasonable. So, what is this about today? As many of you might have already heard, because the news has been everywhere in the last 2 days. I sound very strange saying that, but as many of you have heard, in the last couple days, Starfleet Academy has been cancelled. This is not shocking to anyone who's been paying attention, and some of us, I won't say who, have been wishing for this series to be cancelled. What do you say? How do you say that? The writing was on the wall. Paramount is under new management, and well, the new management is not very woke, and Starfleet was not, well, good. It was also a money bleeder, and the ratings were not there, which is probably the main reason why it was canceled. No one was watching. And despite this, however, I've seen many people, usually those on the left, complaining that it was canceled for political reasons when in fact it was canceled for financial reason. So really what I want to get into is a little, I don't want to call it an essay, that I wrote on my blog, Tales from the Eben Space, which you can find at Substack. And it's a little article about the problems that I've had with Starfleet Academy and New Trek, what I call New Trek from here on out. And I'm just going to read it to you because it's easier for me to just do that. It's easy when I organize my thoughts. So, here goes. The final FU to Star Trek, Starfleet Academy, and its many problems. Here goes. I have tried to love New Trek, starting with Discovery in 2017. I lasted 3 seasons, didn't quite finish season 3, and tuned in for a handful of later episodes, but ultimately never watched really the last 2 seasons. I watched more of Strange New Worlds, though the degradation of Spock, as I like to call it, played by the perfectly cast Ethan Peck, turned me off. Nothing against Nurse Chapel, but Spock's lovelorn pining over a character he largely ignored in the original series is not quite welcome. Neither is New Kirk, played by the vampire guy from the Diary show on the CW, and yes, that's intentional. Michelle Paradise, I see you. Strange New World doesn't understand Spock, retconning him as an autistic, socially non-functional Vulcan for laughs, rather than a man who intentionally suppresses and denies his emotions to balance his Vulcan and human natures, which sometimes leads to humor. Lower Decks is harmless fan fiction. I'm not offended by it. Prodigy, I liked, despite it being a kids' show. I refuse to watch Section 31, but I'm jealous of Michelle Yeoh's alleged $15 million paycheck. Perhaps Section 31 will go down as the worst Star Trek ever. Because of the mess that is New Trek, what I call the Kurtzman series from the last 10 years, I have been rewatching Star Trek. Unfortunately, I don't know if I can make a financial commitment to Paramount, which yanked Trek off Netflix amidst their warfare over Warner Brothers. I watched until Starfleet Academy episode 7 or 8. That's when my Paramount free trial expired. Yeah, sorry, not sorry. This is not to say I may not go back to Paramount in the near future, depending. Let's see how they handle the Warner Brothers deal. Now, I truly feel New Trek, Starfleet Academy in particular, is the final middle finger to Star Trek fans. Paramount is under new management, the infamous Ellison billionaires, who might be friends of the so-called Orange Man. The Ellison signal a new anti-woke mandate, which might spell bad news for Alex Kurtzman, who has overseen Trek for the past decade. Kurtzman's contract expires sometime in 2026. All signs point to an abrupt end. This might explain Kurtzman's rush to get Starfleet Academy Season 2 into production, which it's now completed and will be the final season for the show. My thoughts about Starfleet Academy are many. The color palette, that orangey hue common in fantasy and science fiction, which I despise. The lens flares are gone, but the unexplainable technology distracts. The rapid actiony sequences that are just cut, 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 and difficult to follow. The teleporter is now a door, and it can change your clothes. No explanation given. Okay, it's the 32nd century. Then why are there people in wheelchairs, and why is an alien telepathic race using 21st century sign language? Never mind fart jokes, the aggressively annoying holographic person, Sam, 21st century Zoomer lingo, girl boss, and the sartorially feminized Klingon raised in a polycule with two dads, one of whom abandoned him. As I pointed out in the Harry Potter article, Zoomers are indifferent to everything. Starfleet Academy, like the Acolyte, is made for Zoomers but fails to understand them. Starfleet Academy Episode 1 declared, "And the children shall lead." Well, the actual title is Kids these days. But there lies the problem, you know. Zoomers are not leading, they're lost. They need guidance and optimism, not exploitation of their nihilism and apathy. Trek could have shown them the world as it could be, which is what Trek used to do. The misconception has always been that Star Trek was a reflection of our current society. It never was. It was always a reflection of what the world could be and how the various problems currently plaguing the world could be solved in the near future through the use of, human cooperation and technology. Except Starfleet Academy gives the Zoomers, who may not be old enough to remember a better world, fart jokes, glitter barfs, polycules, and prank wars. And what else? Starfleet Academy has debased the Dax symbiont, whose lifespan was 500 years and who was already 300 years by the time Jazdia inherited it in Deep Space Nine, which took place 800 years prior to Starfleet Academy. Translation: the Dax symbiote shouldn't be on Starfleet Academy. And no, it's not a new symbiote named Dax. It is the Dax of Curzon, Jazdia, and Ezri. And no, it's not okay for them to extend the life of the symbiote in universe. Leave Canon alone. And this is perhaps one of my biggest issues with new Trek. It just won't leave Canon alone. It feels the need to retrofit what came before for reasons that are unexplainable, either because they're not confident in the new stuff or because they just want to exploit it because maybe they feel they can do a better job than those who came before. So this disregard of the Dax symbiote shows either indifference to canon or arrogance of the showrunners. If the former, well, no surprise. If the latter, sigh. See also the reappearance of the Sharonians, the infamous black and white aliens, a long-lived group who killed themselves off in a civil war driven by racial animus. The defense of their appearance, well, they were spacefaring. Surely some of them were off-planet when their people self-annihilated. Sure, but that's not the point. They were shown to self-destruct to emphasize the message of Trek. Get over your racial difference or die. There was no need to bring them back in either Section 31 or Starfleet Academy, except to maybe rub it in the face of people who don't believe that Star Trek was ever woke. What do I mean by that? It's their way of saying black and white folks are proof that Star Trek was always woke and on the nose about wokeism. And that might be the only point of showing these Sironians who are supposed to be annihilated. To rub it in the face of people who deny that Star Trek was ever woke. But at least Starfleet Academy left Benjamin Sisko alone, right? At least that was a good thing. They didn't try to solve the problem, likely because they could not get Sisko back. And by Sisko, I mean Avery Brooks. Anyway, not much happens in Starfleet Academy, which is probably the point. Just kids these days doing things like playing video games, flying spaceships, pulling pranks, and engaging in, maybe coitus once in a while. No philosophical discussion about anything, but we did get a lecture about the merits of musical theater. No attempt to explore strange new worlds and civilizations. All the aliens feel human. It used to be Klingons, divided by their houses and living by honor codes. Now it's the black Klingons who wear artificial braids and have dreadlocks just like real world black people. Klingons, including Worf, are supposed to have straight, loosely curled hair because they're not supposed to represent modern races, or rather, real world races. But who cares? And this is a huge problem not just for Star Trek, but for modern fantasy in general, where the alien races feel very human. They're given human racial diversity, human, it's basically the same thing as saying, well, humans have black, whites, Asians, so let's make the Bajorans black, white, Asians. Let's make the Klingons black, white, Asians. Let's make, the Vulcans black, white, Asian. Let's make, let's racialize these alien races, give them the exact same human racialization. It's just like not good. Aliens can be racialized in ways that are unique to them, ways that are not in line with real world human races, if you want to use that phrase. I don't give me a lecture about how humans are all one race. You know what I mean. You know what I mean. Anyway, I'm not saying a Klingon polygamous marriage doesn't make sense. It does when you think about it, but there's a difference between a homosexuality and how it's handled among Klingons versus a gay Klingon. A gay Klingon is a human just in Klingon face. It's a human whose homosexuality, so it's a Klingon whose homosexuality is handled in very human ways for the sake of representation, as opposed to how you would think the Klingons, an alien race coded in honor and masculinity and warrior culture, would handle homosexuality. New Trek, however, isn't concerned about exploring what that means in the Klingon, what it means in the Klingon context to be homosexual, or why that works for a hypermasculine warrior culture. Rather, it cares about normalizing a specific modern morality. Jaden, spelled with, I think there's an apostrophe between the J and the den, or maybe there's an N dash. God, it's literally African American coded. Anyway, but Jaden's family is polyandrous. Get over it sort of deal is what New Trek is all about. It's not about exploring what that means to be, what those things mean in a Klingon context. It's just, let's treat the Klingons like aliens with the same alien approach, and just get over it. It's representation for representation's sake. By the way, I'm a kind of ad-libbing a lot of this article. Anyway, keep in mind that aliens in Trek exist to explore human concepts, ideals, beliefs, and cultural practices, however controversial. This means exploring what it means to be homosexual in a Klingon context should have been an easy win for those who respect Star Trek as a science fiction property. The alienness is precisely what makes the philosophical ideas worth exploring. Trek, a classic liberal franchise, not woke, but classic liberal, believes in debate, discussion, and interrogation of ideas and ideals. If something is controversial, then let's talk about it and understand why. I sometimes don't know if it's incompetence or arrogance that drives the modern showrunners. It might be both. I do believe that Discovery, and Strange New World showrunners wanted to make good shows. Well, Discovery anyway. Its incipience coincided with Trump, and it descended into wokeism as resistance, which often gets in the way of good storytelling. You know, when you're more focused on the message than telling a good story, that's never a good thing. It unfortunately couldn't recover even after it jumped into the 32nd century to avoid stepping on Canon's toes. We still ended up with Stacey Abrams' cameo and self congratulatory they them representations, for example. Strange New World came with the promise of respecting the fans and canon, but always felt cynical, like it resented what respecting the fans and canon meant, and went about half invested before giving up altogether in favor of what it really wanted to be musical theater. Yes, we got a musical episode, we got a puppet episode, we got all these musical theater things, almost as if someone somewhere was inspired by Buffy the Vampire Slayer, you know, the Buffyverse. I just don't. Oh wait, the musical theater kids are in charge. Can someone get them away from it? See the problem with the Joker too. They made a musical starring Lady Gaga. Anyway, back to the problem with Starfleet Academy. What can I say about Starfleet Academy? If Section 31 was an all out mockery, then Starfleet Academy is the final FU to Trek, a wasted swarm of apathy and passive aggressiveness whose only intent was to pawn the fans. Or to own the fans. I think it's own the fans. We're shitting on Trek because we can. A middle finger goodbye to New Trek. Long overdue. Anyway, that is an excerpt from my ramble essay on my Substack, the Ebb in Space Substack, Tales from the Ebb in Space. Let me know what you think about the cancellation of Starfleet Academy. You know, there are people saying, oh, you evil fans are so bad, now you won't get any Star Trek. You know, I say I'd rather, you know, you cancel Star Trek and we don't get any of the bad stuff, and we can watch the old stuff over and over again, rather than, you know, do this, because this is bad. This is bad, bad, bad. And I'm glad it's canceled. You know, I feel bad for the actors. I do. I don't think it's their fault. But Kurtzman needs to go. 10 years of degradation needs to stop. Let me know what your thoughts are about Starfleet Academy and everything over the last 10 years that has been New Trek. Don't forget to like and subscribe.